Well, welcome. It's 9 o'clock, so we will get started. Today we are going to cover the class Building Your Business. And if you remember a couple of weeks ago, we did Managing Your Business, and Managing Your Business is now is about kind of how now that you're like the CEO and the CFO of your own business, how are you going to keep track of it from a actual business perspective and business owner's perspective? This class is more about um, now I'm in business. How do I get business and grow my business? And a lot of you just went to Ninja, which will be awesome for this. And a lot of that is obviously very relevant here. But we wanted to build our own like discussion around this for you guys that are new or newer as well. So we will get going. This is building your business. So the question is like, why are we here? What are the objectives for today's class? And it's basically one to give you the foundation to build like a tangible plan so that you can execute consistently and build the business that you want. I know when I've told you guys before, like when I got my license and became a realtor, I was switching from like the practice of law where I used to sit at my desk for like 12 hours in a row. And it's a very different and just, work was shoved at me and I just did it. Obviously what we're doing now is very, very different. And you guys have to kind of eat what you kill and generate your own business and spend your time in a different way than just sitting at a desk 12 hours a day. So we're going to talk about like, what does your plan need to look like? What do those steps need to look like? It was really hard for me to adjust from like sitting at my desk all day and working to like doing the things I needed to do to build a real estate business. And we're also going to try to answer the question. And honestly, this is how this class started, is that an agent was like, well, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Right? Like, what am I supposed to be doing to like get deals and grow my business? So, that is where we are starting. There's no handout, but have a piece of paper to take notes. If you want me to share the slides or info or whatever, I need a piece of paper so I can remind myself what I said I would share if we get there. So this will be better if it's interactive. I know you got a bunch, you came from Ninja, so you guys will have stuff to share, but here we go. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Okay, thanks, Marty. Um, okay, so there's three like main actionable steps for you to do to build your business and find success in real estate. The first one is kind of like define your goal and make a plan. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The next one is once you have goals and kind of a tentative plan, you need to create like a marketing strategy that you can execute consistently. This is a whole other class, kind of creating a marketing strategy, and there's so many tools and built-in resources at Briggs Freeman. And if you're doing the ninja steps, like you have kind of a marketing plan and strategy. That's a little bit different than what we're going to talk about today, but it's very, very important to be being intentional with how you are promoting yourself. And then the last one is figuring out how to manage your time so you can execute steps 1 and 2. Like I said, when I got into real estate, I thought it was only a productive day if you sat at your desk for 12 hours, which is obviously not what you guys need to be doing. So we're going to talk about like I think that's one of the hardest things about being an agent is balancing and juggling your time and all the things you need to be doing. So those are the 3 steps, and we're going to go through all of them. So the first one is, before we even get started, it's kind of like know like why you're here because that motivates you to get up and do this every day. So what is your why? Is it paying the bills? Is it affording a specific house? Is it making enough money to take your family on a trip? Is it sending your kids to school, saving for college? Are you taking care of your parents? Like, what is it? There's an awesome TED Talk. I don't know how many of you guys have ever heard it. Start with Why by Simon Sinek. It's got like a gazillion views. I'll send it to you. It's just really kind of inspiring and also helps you realize like why it's important and also how you can motivate like others to work with you if you know why you're doing what you're doing. So just something important to think about, like keeping our eye on the prize, right? Like why are we doing this every day? So we're going to we talk about goals a lot at Briggs Freeman because it's really important to be intentional and to realize where you want to head and like what direction you want to head. And also your mind is so powerful. Um, your mind is a very powerful thing that if you focus on something, like you're going to get there. Even in the ninja chat, I've been seeing people talk about like just the energy of saying like, I need to connect with this person. And then that person calls them. Like the universe is crazy. So, but why is it important to talk to set goals? I'm going to tell you about a study where this scientist in California did a study, and she divided 150 people into 5 groups and told them, and this was in a work environment. She told them, the first group, she said, think about your goals. The second group, she said, write down your goals. The third group, she said, write down your goals and actions you're going to take to reach those goals. The fourth group, she said, write down your goals, write down what actions you're going to take, and share this with a friend who's like supportive of you. And then the last group, she said, write down your goals, write down the actions you're going to take, share them with a supportive friend, and then send a weekly progress report to that friend saying how you're doing. So she studied how effective this group was in terms of getting their goals done. So what do you guys think was like the most effective group? Number 5, yes. Good answer. That's right. So that is correct. Basically, what she found was just the group that thought about their goals, like 43% of them achieved. And then if they wrote them down, 60% of them achieved. If they wrote the goals, this is interesting. If they wrote the goals down and steps they were going to take, only 50%. If they wrote them down, wrote down the steps, told a friend, a little bit more, but the group that had like the weekly accountability check-in, 76% of them achieved their goals. So that's kind of why we've built that guaranteed goals program, is that it's the power of taking the time to write down your goals, right? Having some accountability built in and committing to specific actions. Like if you do those things, you're way more likely to hit your goal. And so that's what this guaranteed goals group is, based off of the 12-week year. But the point is just, you're in this business, you want to get started, you want to kill it. Like for whatever reason you came into this business, it's like, okay, you need to write down what you are hoping to do, because you got to have your eye on some prize, right? Even if you don't get there, you'll get close. So I just like to talk about that study because I think it's really powerful and the kind of the right way to go about it. We're also hoping with this core training group that you guys can get to know each other and lean on each other as a group. It's powerful to be in like the same situation as someone and sharing experiences. You'll learn so much more faster if you guys can share. So that's why we have this kind of core training group and this opportunity for you guys to chat with each other in the teams. We're going to figure out something fun we can do together also. Okay, so the importance of goal setting. You won't get your destination if you don't know exactly where you want to go. So now like think about, for you guys, like how many of you guys have like written goals for this year, like written down? Okay. So that's the first thing you need to do, is like figure out, what are your goals? Is it an income goal? Is it a number of transactions? Is there an amount you need to make to support your lifestyle? Like, is it like, oh, I just need to make X amounts that I can pay for college? Like whatever it is for the kids. Is it, I got to complete Ninja this year? Like figure out what your goals may be. I know some people are like, I got to pay off this amount of debt, like whatever it looks like for you. Figure it out and write it down, right? At Briggs Freeman, we would say if you're just getting started, like a reasonable expectation is that you'd have a deal happening for yourself within the first 1 to 3 months, and you'll have closed at least a few deals, 2 or 3 deals by your 6th month here, right? If you get up and get going and kind of plug yourself in and lean into all of the tools. So, hopefully that helps. Like, at Briggs Freeman, we hope that our agents would produce at least like 5 million in volume, or around 7 deals. Because anyone who's working here is like full-time focused on real estate, and hoping to just build their business. If you want to do more than that, that's awesome. But just to get yourself going, and obviously you may not hit that the first year, but it's good to have your eye kind of on a prize. So figure out what your goal might be. And of course, write it down. So figure out what that looks like for you. You might have more than one. Like I have my list of goals right here. There's like 30 goals for the year over like family. I'm looking at my little bulletin board, all the different things that I have, health, personal, like for our house, for work. And then it helps me to say, like, am I making any progress toward this? Or if I have made progress crossing something off, just having the visual is so helpful. So figure out what that looks like for you and do it. Take the time to do it. It's worth it. Okay. So what do you need to do to reach the goal? Now that you have stated goals and you know the direction that you want to head, what do you need to do? You need to have kind of a plan, right? Like in our little study, we saw like people wrote down the goals. And then they need to write down the action commitment and tell someone about it. So that's what we're going to talk about. So here are the steps I would say to a good plan for a new agent. Like these are the things you could be working on. First thing you need to do is build it. We're going to go through all of these in detail, but the first one you need to do is build a database, right? Because realtors live and die by their database. Like we are in a relationship-based business. We're not just like getting leads and churning and burning and moving on to the next deal. Hopefully every deal that we create is like the fruit of a tree that will lead to more deals because it's relationship based and you guys are doing a really good job. So build a database, keep track of it, figure out what that looks like, figure out which business activities make sense for you. Learn the market and become an expert. So there's things you can be doing there. Create what your marketing plan is going to look like. You don't have to have a huge budget. You just have to figure out what you're going to do consistently to get in front of people. And then create a schedule for executing this. Like I said, this was something that I struggled with because I thought you had to be sitting at your desk all day, and you obviously don't. But there are times when you need to be sitting at your desk, and there's times when you need to be out and about. And then execute the plan consistently. So those are the steps, and now we're going to kind of walk through them. Any questions before we get going? No? Okay. So first things first, you have to have a database, right? Like we're a relationship-based business. We live and die by our database. You need to keep track of your people, be touching on your people in a regular way. How many of you have to have a database physically somewhere, whether it's in ReChat, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet. If you have a holiday card list, you can start there. If you had a wedding list of people you invited, you can start there. You can start in your phone and pull people out, but you have to have a database. It does not have to be 6,000 people. There's only so many people that you can touch thoughtfully. But you have to start somewhere. Like 3 years ago now, I think one of my goals was to make more referrals. You guys have all heard this story probably, because I'm like, I literally know like the best agents in every market. And the fact that I'm not making referrals all the time is ridiculous. So I was like, the first thing I have to do is organize my database so that I can touch all of my people thoughtfully. And then once I had done that, I was like, now I'm going to get in front of them in a thoughtful way. And I would send out, the campaigns that our marketing department makes, and I would do social media posts about work and real estate. And it literally was like so simple. I had to just get my database in a good place and do those things, and it started happening like much more frequently and easier. So you have to have your database. And if you have questions about how to do that or how to get started, let us know. You can keep it in ReChat, you can keep it in Excel. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to get going. When I did my process, I put all of mine into ReChat, and then I went through and I edited in ReChat on my phone because the phone app is like awesome for editing and adding tags and removing tags and deleting people. So now I have like 600 people that receive the email campaigns when we send them out. And that's just a thoughtful way for me to be in touch. And then I had tagged them as campaigns so that they receive those campaigns. You can do it however you want to do it. I have past client tag, I have a country day tag where I went to school. Like I have a few different tags, but I wouldn't over tag things. Just think about what you're going to do with this information and then tag them that way. Does that make sense? Do you guys have questions about this?
Hey, Serene, can I share kind of a tip of I was updating my database yesterday that I'm
Yes,
finding a little bit
please.
helpful?
Yes, please.
I'm a terrible millennial. I hate sitting in front of my computer. Like it overwhelms me to look at a computer for that long. And so I just took a minute and printed out my Excel sheet, and I've been going through by hand and just editing and going, oh, I'm missing this person and making notes. And it's so much easier for me to then look at a piece of paper and go back to my computer and make those edits that I've already done by hand. It might be more time consuming, but it stops that like block of, oh my God, I have to sit in front of my computer forever.
I mean, whatever works, man. That works for you, like awesome, do it. In fact, we did this a while ago. One of our like very experienced agents, that this was her like last fall when we did a guaranteed goal. She was like, I must clean up my database. And she's been in the business probably 20 plus years. And she did the same thing. She printed it out, and I'm not a paper person, so that like makes my skin crawl for me. But if it works for you, that's awesome. Do it. I'm 100% like sit on my phone and like do it in carpool line or whatever. But whatever work, however you're gonna do it. That's awesome. Thank you
Well,
for sharing.
can I add one thing?
Yeah.
And another thing I've been doing too, Zareen, is I've been like taking like A through C or whatever, just a few at a time. And the people that I don't have their information, just texting them, and saying, "Hey, just checking in on you. Haven't talked to you in a while. I'm new to the real estate business or, whatever." And just say, "I would love to have your information so I can keep up with you." And I'm just updating my contact list and want to make sure I have the right information. Something like that. More personal. And then most everybody's very willing to go, "Oh, here's my email, here's my address." And that way I make sure I have everything right.
Yeah, it's a nice warm touch too, to just reach out
Yeah.
to them, be like,
Yeah.
hey, I realize I don't have your current address, or is this still your good email or whatever? So it's a nice way to make your ninja contacts as well. So
Also,
uh,
Serene, really quick. I feel I just listened to Jim Miller's podcast, and he talks about the just building all of your database and what to add and how to deal with it. And I think it's really helpful. I think he's done like 3. They're like 15-minute longs, and I think it just began this January. He just began talking about that, so I think that's very helpful as well. If you want
yeah,
to listen to it, Jim Miller, really good.
that's a pro tip. That was one of the things we mentioned in the managing your business class, is that Jim Miller is the head broker at Jameson Sotheby's International Realty, which is the peerage based Sotheby's in Chicago area. And he's like a phenomenal coach. He coaches only elite level producers, he says, but he does a Monday morning podcast every Monday, and it's free. You can find it anywhere. His website is askjimmiller.com, but he just got so much great information. Like 100% everyone should be listening to it because it's fast and he's not boring, and he's got really good advice that he's giving away for free. So thank you. Moni, I'm glad you're listening to it because it's really, really good. Okay. So one thing you can do is you should be keeping a hot and warm list immediately, right? And you need to do that, whatever that looks like for you. This is kind of, what is a hot and warm list? So a hot list is anyone who wants to buy and sell, and you're, actively working with, right? Like these are like my 3 buyers that I'm looking with in this one listing I have. So that's your hot list, is like people that you're like actively working with. The warm list is a list of people who probably want to buy and sell. They may not even realize it, but they're having life changes or what have you, and that they'll probably make a move in the next 6 months to a year. So you need to keep in touch with those people. So when you're out touring and you see something perfect for them, or they just keep you front of mind and you keep them front of mind. So you got to figure out how you're going to keep it. Are you keeping it in WeChat? I have a top producer that she has 2 post-its that she puts on the outside of her laptop, because then they're always with her and she's always looking at it. But you need to look at it every day, because the worst feeling, and this will happen to everyone at some point, and as a manager, people used to come and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so annoyed. I was helping these people look, and then we kind of fell out of touch, and I just saw their post that they bought a new house." And it's like, we knew that they were going to transact and somehow we still lost touch. So you have to have your hot and your warm list written down somewhere and look at it every day. I love the sticky note on the laptop because you're definitely looking at that every day, right? So figure out what that is for you, and then, review it daily. And then your warm list, you need to be touching at least, once a week-ish. Hot list, you're probably talking to them every day, right? Because you're hearing about properties and checking in and, figuring out what works. Now, Ninja has an exercise called the hot and warm list exercise, where once you have your database, you kind of go through, and there's 16 questions that you ask about every person. And if they get more than like 5 or 6 check marks, it's like, oh wow, this person is in a situation where they're likely to move. They've had life changes or whatever. And I will tell you, every time I mention this exercise and an agent does it, someone calls me and is like, "Serene, I did that exercise and I have a listing presentation tomorrow," or whatever it is. Like, the business is there if you're keeping in touch with your people. So I'll share the hot and warm list exercise. It's from the Ninja. It's a Ninja activity. And you need to have your database kind of squared away to do it, but it's a keeper for sure. I always tell people who feel like they're slow in their business, like, this is something you should do because it's going to scrounge up something for you. Okay, so we talked about how to keep track of your people and how to be thinking about them, right? Hot, warm, whatever it is. So now we need to talk about like where your people might come from, right? Like, what are your business sources? And this is a list of business sources. It's obviously not an exclusive list, but you need to think about, what are your potential business sources, and can these people go in your database, right? Like one year when I did like 9 deals one year, and I realized that 3 of them came from my gym. And it was not like I was like being obnoxious and like talking about real estate all the time at the gym, but I used to go and I would work out at 5 in the morning at this gym called Enduralab in Fort Worth. And these people were obviously like, oh, she's just like a hardworking person and she's serious and she has to work out at 5 because she's busy during the day and whatever. And one day we were running and this lady was like, oh, I just saw you in the 360 West magazine. So that was like marketing as a validator. But you know, it's not just that like your business, your deals are going to come from your like business specific business activities and intentional networking. Like everywhere you are as an agent doing what we do, like you're a walking billboard for yourself all the time. So you kind of just have to think about that, like how you're presenting yourself in the real world, online, all of those things. It's funny, I just had an agent text me yesterday and I was so excited where she was like, I just got my first $3.2 million listing. And you know, after doing this for I think 4 or 5 years now, she's like, this is my first like really big one. And I'm so excited. And I was like, how did you meet this person? Like, and she said she went on a yoga retreat and met them there. So everywhere you are, you're, you know, a billboard for yourself and everything's kind of connected when we do what we do, because what we do is like interact with humans and we're interacting with humans all the time, if it's on the soccer sidelines or whatever. The dog park, like business comes from crazy places. So just be intentional about where you're spending your time. So think about the things that you do and like how you're presenting yourself there. So does anyone have questions about this? No? Okay, I will tell you, like, one of the things, I don't have many tricks up my sleeve. One of them is the hot and warm list. Another one is like a transaction audit. When you've been in the business a while and you can have a list of your transactions, is to go back and really look at like what was the source of your business. I did this with a top producer a few years ago, and she realized that like so many of her deals that year, like almost a third of them had been referrals from either a deal with someone in her supper club or a deal with someone that was referred by her supper club. So she was like, I was just hosting these dinners every month because it was like fun and I love these people. And she's like, but it had become such a powerful part of her business. And she didn't realize that until she realized like, what is the source of that business? So you just got to think about these things kind of. Okay. So just think about what your business sources might be and figure out what activities like make sense for you. And once you've been in the business a little bit longer, you could kind of analyze like, well, where have my deals really come from? And like, it's like, oh, I thought this membership in this chamber was going to be really valuable for me as a business, and I haven't gotten any deals from there. So maybe I don't need to spend my time there anymore. Point is to be intentional. Okay. So the next one is learn, well, hold on. Let's see, figure out what business activities make sense for you. These are business activities and marketing activities, right? So you have, they're kind of the same, like we just talked about, they overlap, but we always think that marketing activities are things that you would work with our marketing department to get done, whereas business activities are things you're probably going to kind of do on your own. They overlap so much, there's not a huge distinction, but this is kind of like a large list of things that might make sense for you and what to do of these things makes sense for you. Is it networking? Is it sharing events? Is it doing real estate reviews? Is it hosting happy hours? Like, what is it that works for you? And what are you actually going to do? Kind of to Hattie's point is like, what works for you? No one's going to do all of these things. You have to pick and choose and figure out what works for you. We have an agent who is a top producer. She doesn't hardly do any like print or paid like marketing, but she does awesome client events and pop by seasonal gifts like that are so cute, and it really works for her and the way her sphere is. So you got to figure out like what is going to work for you, and you, obviously at the beginning you might have to try a few things, but we just kind of wanted you to see this list of like all the things that might make sense for you. Does anyone have questions about this? Does this feel overwhelming? Does this make sense? You got to just figure out the things that you want to try and then do them consistently, I would say. So, you know, building and maintaining a database, figuring out where your people are, figuring out who your people are, having them in an organized way, figuring out what business activities you want to take on and do that makes sense for you, for sure. And then the next one is to learn the market and become a real estate expert. This one's important because when you are out and about, like in the real world, interacting with people, you have to sound like you know what you're talking about. And the best way to sound like you know what you're talking about is to actually know what you're talking about. So there is a component of spending time when you're new to like learn the market and become a real estate expert. And that's not just when you're new, like always, like you guys see like our top producers are out there touring properties and but they will know like, oh, that block, you're probably gonna get this much for a lot. Like they know the back of their hand because they've been doing it for so long. And you guys need to take the time to kind of educate yourself and know the market, and that will like give you confidence, right? So you need to be going on tour. Even if you don't have a buyer for a specific property or a listing coming up that might be in that neighborhood, like go on tour and learn these markets and it will help you. So, one question now that people know you're in real estate, like how many times have you been asked this question? How's the market, right? A lot, probably. And then there's some bad answers, which are like, oh, it's so busy, or oh, it's slow, or great. And then that's like the end of the conversation. So that's not a great answer. You need to figure out what is your answer going to be. Does anyone feel like they do a good job at this? Because you guys learn best from each other, and it would be helpful probably to hear how someone else answers this question. Anyone want to share? Be brave. If you're in the elevator and someone's like, how's the market going?
Well,
I'll try.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry,
ahead,
Marty.
Sarah.
No, I try like I just put in the chat thing, like I love Jason's market kind of thing that he sends out in his email, which helps a lot. But I was going to ask y'all, people that have done it longer than me, like what's your go-to source of saying, of knowing how the market's doing?
Yeah, I'll just piggyback that, Marty, because I too like to follow Jason's. He almost spoon feeds it to us. It's quick, analytical numbers that you just kind of need to memorize or quick note, put in your pocket so you can pull it out. And even just giving one or two numbers, year to year really builds credibility. Doesn't have to be a really long, in-depth answer. It's good to be prepared for that, but that's helped me a lot. And then also just answering with another question, like what part of the market are you
Yes,
interested in?
yes. Oh, I love that. Okay, Sabra, I planted her to say that, not really. But yes, I mean, to Sabra's point, like if you guys are coming to the meetings that Briggs Freeman is offering in the class, we do try to make it really easy and position you guys as experts without having to like go and seek out all this information. If you're coming to the huddles in your office and the lunches and the meetings and attending the Monday morning meeting, like you should have enough nuggets to be able to answer this question. But there's a few different ways to approach it. Like sometimes people are watching like the Today Show and getting like national news that's like so irrelevant to how we operate in our specific markets. You can be like, well, what are you hearing? Or, specifically what part of the market are you wondering about? Or you can just kind of have like one little nutshell comment and then see how they react, right? So it's like, it's interesting, spring was crazy wild sellers market, but we're seeing it slow down and there's a little bit more inventory now, especially at the higher price point. And then they'll be like, oh, and then they might ask about their own neighborhood or whatever.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
For me, it's the hot sheets. I check my
Hot
hot sheets either every day. Yeah, almost every day. And then that way of course I have like certain areas that I want to specialize in. And it's usually areas where I know people. So if I bumped into somebody, I know what's coming up, what street or what came up or price reductions. And we can just like have a casual conversation. Like, oh my God, yeah, did you see the new house on the corner of blah, 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 just so they know that I am like immersed in it.
Explain to this group like what the hot sheets are and how to get them.
Okay, the hot sheets, you create them on the MLS, and it's basically everything that comes up in that area and changes. I have several. I have like Lakewood. I have, areas that I want to be knowledgeable in.
I love it.
Yeah, so I think that's very, very, very useful. But you have to go in and check them. Like you're not going to get an email. You got to go into the MLS, click on it, and see what's up. So I think that's
you have to set it up for yourself, or you can just go look every day.
You can set it up for yourself.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a great one. And I love that. So obviously like you can, read your emails, come to meetings, and we're going to try to share that information with you, but you also just need to keep yourself educated. Inman News is a good source of kind of like real estate industry news. Keeping Current Matters is a great one. Their social media is awesome to follow, and share stuff for sure. It's called Keeping Current Matters. You know, the local newspaper is not bad. Follow on social media, realtor organizations, your local association, things like that. You know, Briggs Freeman does market moves that are good to share. You basically just have to decide, like, I want to be an expert, and then like plug in and go look at your hot sheets and come to the meetings and like, but you'll get, the more confident you are in like the actual information that you know, like the better you're gonna do and interact with people for sure. And then obviously we think one way to become an expert is to become a ninja, right? So at least read the book. And definitely attend a ninja installation. That's one of our expectations, that in the first 2 years here, that someone who's new would get themselves to an installation, because it's just great business practices. I know several of you are like new ninjas, which is very exciting. Okay, so what are the steps, right? Build a database, figure out the activities, learn the market. And so now create a marketing plan. And this is one where you can't really start here. You have to have like the basics down. But we have a class called How to Ace Your Marketing, which is part of our core training. You should definitely come to that. I mean, come to any class that the marketing department offers, because you're always going to pick up great nuggets. And also when there are other agents there, you can hear what they're doing, which I think is like the most helpful thing for sure. So when you create a plan, you know, take the class, complete this core training. Once you've done that, then you can kind of schedule a meeting with, Sherry to like say, this is what I want my plan to look like, or think about what, like I said, when I was like, I gotta do more referrals because I don't actively list and sell anymore. I was like, I'm going to, literally my plan was fix my database so that I can send out the campaigns when the marketing department creates them, like once or twice a month. There's these beautiful campaigns, and you just go in, that you just have to go into reach out and say, yes, I want to send this to these groups, and it'll go. And it's like a very thoughtful, awesome touch. And then I was like, I'm gonna do, I think it was like one or two, a personal social media post and a work social media post every week, just to be in front of people more. And it made all the difference. And that's not like an intense marketing plan, guys, but that was what I had time to do, and it worked. So you just have to figure out what your plan is and then execute it consistently. Does not have to be crazy and insane and huge. And obviously at the beginning, when you're still trying things, it might be like one real estate review a week, or whatever it is. Like, what are the few things you can do to like get the ball rolling, and then you can kind of see what works. Okay, so create your marketing plan. We're not spending a ton of time on that because there's whole other classes on that. And then the next one is, this was hard for me, like I've said a million times now. Create a schedule for executing my business and marketing activities so that you're actually gonna get them done. And you guys have probably heard me talk about this before, but this is the Eisenhower matrix of things that are urgent and important, or not urgent and not important, and like, where do they fall and how do I get them done? So urgent and important are things that have to happen now. In real estate, we tend to feel like everything is urgent and important, and it's really not. So if you guys can get good from the beginning of deciphering what is urgent and important, like my phone just rang and I need to answer that call, but obviously like they can wait 30 minutes. So that can wait. Most things can. I know we're in the customer service business, but if you just let, I have auto responses in my phone that says like, I'm in a meeting, text me. So if it's something that I can respond to, I could do. I have another one that says, I'm on the other line, I'll call you back as soon as I can, which is what I just sent this person. Obviously, I'm not actually on the other line, but like my point was, I'm doing something, I will get back to you as soon as I can. And that's fine. You guys have probably all received those from me if you've called me, and then I get back to you, and that's okay. So when you think about things that are urgent and important, those are things that have to be done, and you have to do it. If you have an out of town buyer who's coming for one weekend, you got to clear the schedule and make that happen, because that is urgent, it's time sensitive, and it's important. It needs to be you. If you have, you know, if there's an offer deadline, like that is urgent and important, and that has to take the precedence. There are things that are urgent and not important, and those things need to be delegated, right? Like if you have a listing presentation on Friday and you want to deliver pre-listing information, like that packet needs to get to that client like right now, but you don't have to be the person that drives 45 minutes to drop it off. Like you could delegate that if you needed to. Meal prep could be delegated, like things that you just have to think about, like, do I personally need to do this, or could someone else do this for me? When you're new and you have more time, you may be able to do it all. And you don't need to pay someone to do it, but that's something you have to kind of figure out. When I was really, really busy, I used to have a housekeeper come, and I needed my laundry done, and it like took me forever to realize, like, if I just paid her a little bit more, she could actually do my laundry and life would be so much easier, because it was urgent that it needed to get done, but I did not need to do it. It was like so hard for me to be like, oh, I'll just pay this person to do my laundry and life is so much better. So you got to just think about what are the things on your plate and how do they fit into this kind of matrix. And then there's things that are not urgent and are not important, like going down the social media rabbit hole or playing games on your cell phone or whatever it is. And you got to figure out how to minimize those if you set a limit on it or whatever it is. And then the last one, and this is the most important quadrant, is things that are important and you need to do them, but they're not urgent, meaning there's no deadline hanging over them. If you don't get 2 real estate reviews done this week, no one's coming for you. You're not going to have like unhappy clients, right? So these are the things that you have to schedule and build into your calendar and work around, because these are your lead generating activities that need to happen. Exercise is another one. Like, no one's going to get mad at you if you didn't hit your exercise goal this week, but like, you need to do it. So you need to put it on the calendar and then like work around it, right? Your weekly client updates. Again, no one's like, you might have a seller that was actually paying attention and was like, where's my Friday update? But realistically, if they don't get done, no one's coming for you, but you need to do them. So you have to schedule them and just say, I do those Thursday afternoon and they go out Friday morning or whatever it is. You got to block that time out. And we're going to kind of talk about that. I think one of the hardest parts it was for me when I transitioned into selling real estate was like managing my time, because figuring out what I needed to do when and how to block it. And of course you want to be available. So then you just play whack-a-mole of like whatever's coming at me right at this moment. And that's being a realtor on accident and not on purpose. Like, there is a way to manage your calendar. So if you guys can learn this now, that's awesome. Melanie Frank, who taught our ninja installation, told me a story once. And when she was a new agent, she was touring, and the listing agent was holding a very busy lady that was holding open this like beautiful house, and her phone rang in the middle of the tour. And this lady was talking to a bunch of agents, and she was like, oh, that's a 12 o'clocker. And like went back to the conversation. So when they were done talking, Mel was like, why did you look at your phone and say 12 o'clocker? And she's like, well, I could see who was calling. It's a client. I know what they needed. And she's like, and it can wait. She's like, they'll either find someone else to answer their question between now and when I call them back. But she's like, I will call her back at 12 and like answer her questions. And so that's hard for us to do when we want to be like immediately available all the time. But if you can let people know, like, I'm going to get back to you, and you actually do get back to them and follow up, no one's dying on our operating table doing what we do, right? Like, we sell real estate, most things can wait. Every once in a while, when at like 4 p.m., I'll get a call from an agent and be like, we have a 5 o'clock deadline for option, and that is urgent and important, and I need to take that call. But for the most part, you can be somewhat protective of your time if you have something scheduled and you're doing something important. Does that make sense? I feel like agents need to hear that, so that you're not just like playing whack-a-mole all the time and running all over the place to be responsive.
Hey,
Does that
Zuri,
make sense? Yeah.
I heard this analogy, maybe it resonates with some of y'all, but it encapsulates this whole message. It goes, every day of life is a juggling act. Know which balls are rubber and which ones are glass.
Exactly. And most of them are rubber.
Yeah.
Yes. Amen. I love that.
Also, when it comes
Zuri?
to sorry, whoever's talking, go ahead.
Go ahead, Hattie.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, also, I find that whoever is calling me, that I'm like, I usually answer, like, is it urgent? Okay, can I call you back? Or if I don't answer, when I'm with them in person, then they know that's my expectation, and they have 100% of my attention, just like I gave 100% of my
Yep.
attention to who I ignored their call with.
That's exactly right. And also, like, I highly encourage you guys, especially with the phone, because it's like a huge distraction, and mine's sitting right here and I keep looking at it. Like, you can customize your auto responses. So sometimes I'll be like, I'm in a meeting, I can't talk, text me. And the agent will be like, this is really important. And I'll be like, do I need to step out? And then they're like, yes. Or no, it can wait. Like, when can you call me back? And I'm like, 11:30. And they're like, that's fine. So, you can kind of set boundaries, but yes, it is nice to like give people your undivided attention. Did someone else have something?
Well, I was just going to say that it's a good reminder, from a productivity standpoint, but it's an even better reminder for me because I will often, accommodate my clients just by answering the call when I can and just trying to take care of everything. And then they think I'm on call all the time.
Yes.
So it's a good reminder for me just to set that expectation with my client going in, because I've been in the business long enough, and it's one of those reminders, now that I'm in a new market again, kind of starting over, to just make sure. I had my first listing a few months back, and it was just, he kind of ran the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, reel it back in and make sure that I am the one, running the business, not my client.
Yes. It's okay to have a boundary. Like, we wouldn't call our doctor's office and be like, I demand to speak to the doctor right now, right? Like, it's just not how business works. And you guys are business people. And if you act professionally and you do follow up with people, like, it's okay to have boundaries. The key there is, of course, you have to follow up with people and be professional and do a good job. I'm not saying ignore people, but it's okay to set expectations and be like, I can call you back in 2 hours. So, okay. So tips for owning your time. And we're going to breeze through this, but you plan your personal time first. Melanie Frank taught me this. Work without distraction. Classify your tasks in terms of, like, we'll talk about that. Create a weekly calendar, and then you need to prep yourself on a weekly and daily basis, and then keep your commitments to yourself. That's important, right? If you scheduled your exercise or you signed up for that Pilates class or whatever, and the client's like, oh, I want to go see this house, try to see the house before or after. Like, keep the commitments you've made to yourself. Like, that's important. So Melanie taught me this. We were talking about when she could do an installation press once, and she's like, well, the first thing she does is she takes her calendar and puts all of her important holidays, anniversaries, trips, whatever, into her calendar. And then she works from there in terms of scheduling her installations. But put that stuff on there because that's why we're alive, right? For our people, not to work. So put that stuff on there first. This is the same kind of list, but basically, come to the office. I think that's really valuable on several levels in terms of getting things done, in terms of networking for you guys, in terms of just having some structure for your day. Classify your tasks, keep a list of what needs to get done, and then schedule things into your calendar. And then I kind of look, even this morning, I was like, I have like my calendar on my phone, because there's like different calendars that feed into it as my like single source of truth. But then on a daily basis, I'll kind of sit down and make my list of like what's happening what are things that are actually scheduled, and what are the other things that get done, and when can I do them, right? When you have a lot going on, you have to be intentional and organized with your time, or you're going to drop one of those balls that is hopefully rubber, right? But that's how I do it. And I check in with myself kind of the night before I look, and then the morning of, I like make a plan of where am I going to be and what needs to happen when. And you just have to do this. It's time management. So we're going to talk about kind of like how to build a calendar. And what are the things I need to be doing every week? I need to be learning about the business, right? I need to be learning about the market. I need to check in with my mentor. I need to go to the office and be available and network. I need to do my business activities. I need to write notes. Like, what are the things you need to be doing every week? Those are things that I would say are all important, but not urgent, right? There's nothing catastrophic happens if you don't get those done, but those are all very important to growing your business. So put your personal things into your calendar first, right? And then put your training things in, right? Calendar is old, so now our tours are in Dallas, they're in the afternoon, and in Fort Worth, they're on Tuesday. So different offices do it different times, but just schedule those things, right? So that you're kind of working around them. So if a client is like, oh, can we go look at this house Monday morning? Like, hopefully your answer is, I can't go Monday at 9:30 because I have a meeting, but I could go Monday at 11, right? And then it's okay for you to say that and be business and be busy if you can like offer alternative solutions. So, and then, figure out a plan, like I'm going to come to the office these times and do work, right? And then now it's like, okay, well, these are the activities that I need to do. So I'm going to put them into the calendar to get done at these times. You're just kind of like layering to build this stuff. So I know this can feel overwhelming, but it was just, sometimes people think it's a helpful visual to see. And then, you know, I have these things called process tasks, which are just like the little things that need to happen every day. And then immersive tasks are like thinking tasks. I think that's from the 12-week year. But figuring out how to manage your time when you're an agent, I think is one of like the biggest challenges because it's so open, especially when you're busy and you don't have actual things on your calendar. I mean, when you're new and you don't have actual things on your calendar. So you've got to build yourself a thoughtful calendar and you have to figure out how are you going to keep track of what you have to do. How many of you guys like struggle with this because there's so many different things you need to do and it's like, where do I keep this? Yeah, it's hard. I use Outlook tasks and I use a note in my phone. I use a combination of those two things so that it's always here and then everything gets caught and then it has to get put into my day of when I'm going to get that stuff done. But we have an agent that uses Things, which is like an app. It's like a sticky note app and she really loves it. Like people use the Ninja Planner, people use it. I have a top producer that uses good old paper, day planner. Like you figure out what works for you. But just, you got to figure it out. And then this is one where, you know, you had blocked out this working time and you just keep filling it in. So that's what like a time block week looks like. Hopefully that doesn't like feel overwhelming, but you've just got to, because so much of what goes into building and growing our business is important, but not urgent work. It needs to be put on the calendar as if it were an appointment. And then you need to keep that appointment with yourself and get it done, right? Because otherwise you can be like, man, I got to the end of the week and I was really busy like running around and I didn't actually do any of the things that I needed to do to build and grow my business.
Yeah,
So make
sorry.
it like an appointment with yourself. Moni, what's up?
Sorry, I just wanted to share that I just started the time blocking. It's my third week, and I just wanted to let you all know that it's game changer. I feel like I was running around, I was so busy, but I was not doing anything. So it sounds crazy.
So
But
how did you start?
now,
Like, what did you do? Because that's like, I think such a hard thing for people to figure out.
yes, it was hard for me as well. But I sat down one Sunday, I sat down and I'm like, okay, how is my week gonna look like? So I knew I had because I like to keep a to-do list, like a business to-do list on my phone. So usually that to-do list was like, I never did it. I did like a few things, but not all of it because I didn't have the time. So one Sunday I just sat down, I looked at my calendar and I'm like, okay, so this week, Monday, I'm gonna work out at 8, Tuesday, I'm gonna work out at 6, just like started with that. And then I added the tour, like you said, like everything, like it's important to me, like the tour and the Monday meeting. And then I just began adding some stuff like, okay, I want to work on my social media. I want to post every single day. So I time blocked an hour of every single day for social media. And it's not always on the same time, but just whenever I thought I was going to be available. And then after that, I started doing, calls. Okay, at 2 p.m. before I go and pick up the kids, I'm going to do calls, texts, emails, whatever I need to do. And then my real estate reviews, I put that one time block for real estate reviews, like every single thing that I have.
Yeah, so you did this basically is you took your
Yes.
important and you made yourself an
Mhm.
appointment to do it.
Yes, and it's interchangeable. Like I cannot move it unless, there's something important. I'm like, okay. Like for example, somebody texted me this morning and she's like, can you do lunch on Wednesday? And I'm like, let me see. Okay, I have that time block for, search properties for a client. So I'm just gonna move it up. So I just switched it. So
Yes,
it
and
turned
so
out.
that's where if someone wants to do lunch with you on a Wednesday and that's something you want to do, like that's urgent and important, right? It's got a set time, it has to be you. So then it's like, I will make that happen and shift things around. But I think that's why I love the urgent important matrix, because anything that comes at you, you can kind of run through this funnel of like,
Yeah.
do I need to do this? I love that. Thank you. That's awesome. Okay, so then the last one is execute the plan consistently. And that's challenging. I do think time blocking helps. I think time blocking can be a 4-letter word and is really hard to figure out. So I love, Moni, that you shared with us how you did it. And like you scheduled an appointment with yourself. and put it on the calendar physically. And then the things that you need to get done are scheduled. Jack Canfield has a thing. I can't remember. It's not called 5 things. It's called something else. But he basically every day he's like, what are the 5 things that need to happen today for me to consider it like a successful day? We have an agent in Fort Worth who does this, where he's like, I think he does 5 things that he needs to get done. And if he gets them all done, he gives himself like a plus or a minus. And then at the end of the week, he looks and sees if he had more pluses than minuses and if he like won the week, right? And that's his little way of like challenging himself. The 5 things for me is really helpful because it does keep you like focused on like really what is, I think the key there is you're stopping to take the time to be intentional about how you're spending your time that day, right? So execute your plan consistently, time blocking, using your calendar, figuring out what's urgent and important, and then just do it, right? So these are our steps. Again, set up your goal, set your goal, make the plan, create a marketing plan and strategy, and then manage your time so you can execute those things, right? And figure out how to like lay it out on the calendar. These are the steps. Like I said, I think time management is one of the hardest things as a new agent. Does anyone have questions? I will say like, we always talk about building your team. Make sure that you're connecting with these guys. They can help you build your team. They can help you do your deals better. They'll just be a good source of information for you. I just want to put their contact information in front of you so that you have what you need. I guess I need to add Josh's too, for sure. So one final thought. I know it's a lot of information. I know it can be overwhelming. I definitely had like a mentor when I transitioned into real estate who helped me realize like, hey, you don't need to sit at your desk. Like we had a very productive Thursday and we know the weekend's going to be busy. So Friday, like take the first half of the day off or do what you need to do. Like, you know, you have to just have balance and figure out how things work. It can be overwhelming, but you have a great team around you. One thing, so your success, it does depend on you, right? Like we can want it for you as managers or whatever, but you have to do it yourself and figure it out. And it's like, I love hearing the stories of how you guys are like being intentional and figuring things out for you. It makes me like so excited. Your success is going to depend on you, period. But you're not alone at the same time, right? Like make friends at the office, like have an accountability person where it's like I said I was going to go to the office on Monday, and so Marty and Moni are both going to be there and we're all going to agree to meet there, and it's just having accountability helps, right? Build the team around you. Like the loan officers can give you good information and help you, you know, Sherry, your marketing person, who's your manager, me, your title person. Like you need to have a team around you that's making you better. Obviously Briggs Freeman has like a really strong team and all these resources. Like ask questions, learn, like when you're new, like what the best thing about Briggs Freeman is it's people and like everyone is collaborative and helpful for the most part. So like lean into that. I always tell this story, but like people, you know, people will pray for a cake and they'll want like the cake so bad. And the universe, they walk into the kitchen and the universe has given them, you know, batter, oil, icing, a pan, the oven mitts, like all the things. But they walk into the kitchen and they don't see the cake and they get frustrated. And it's like, no, you have everything in front of you, but you're going to have to assemble it and do the work if you want it to happen. So, when there's things you feel like you need, or if you need help, like reach out and let us help you. Your managers are awesome. Like I'm always here. You have each other. We have our team chat, for this core training that I think can be really helpful. So, that's all I have. Does anyone have questions or thoughts or sarcastic remarks, things you need?
I was just going to add one thing, and it's not
Yeah.
even sarcastic, which is shocking, but just a final thought. Like, obviously I just went through Ninja, which was amazing. And, all this can be so overwhelming, but I kind of had the mindset after that too of, I mean, I'm doing the daily habits and I'm, even if I miss one, the next day I pick it up and like, I'm going to get back on track. But it's like starting from the inside out. Like, I'm like, who are the people that already love me, know me, trust me? Start with those people and just say, hey, if you know anybody, start there. And then yesterday I was in my car driving, doing open houses, and I reached out to a girl that I haven't seen in 2 years, and her and I flew together years ago. And I just texted her and we ended up talking, and she was just like almost in tears. She's just like, you made my whole day. Like I've always
Aw.
loved you and respected you. And you showed me the ropes and all, all things. And she said, please send me your contact stuff so I can, tell people about what you're doing now. And anyway, so those things matter, just the personal touches that we learned in Ninja. And that's probably why we're all doing this business anyways, because we're people, we
Yep.
love people, we want to help them. So just keep that in mind.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Serene,
Anyone
I
Yeah.
was gonna piggyback off of Moni just because time blocking is something I've done for years, just personally and with my family. But few other benefits for those that are encouraged after today to start utilizing that is when those unexpected things happen, you already kind of have it in front of you to where you can see where you can shift things instead of kind of mindlessly aiming on where they can go. If something unexpected does come up and you do have to shift around some things, I have found that to be so helpful in knowing like where my white space is in throughout the week. But then also like if things aren't trending in the way that I want, or they're not, reaping the fruits that I think that they should, it also gives me a really quick way to assess, if I'm not doing enough of something, or if I am doing too much of something that maybe is not helpful, kind of like what you were saying. So it's super helpful in more ways than one that I have found it to be.
Awesome. Yes, it's a skill, but it's so valuable once you can kind of figure it out. And also I think part of being a successful time blocker is like being willing to like protect the time that you've scheduled. And that's hard for us because like we're all people pleaser and we want to be available and helpful all the time, but it really will make you so much better and more efficient. And like I said, like no one's dying on our operating table, and most things like can wait a couple hours so that we can finish whatever we were focusing on. So yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, anyone else? All right, thanks guys. Thanks for coming. So this Friday at 9, it's actually a CE class. It's what every agent should know about financing. So our SLS team will teach it. It's a good class, just basics, things you should know about financing, really, really good. So they will see you Friday at 9.
Thank you,
Bye.
Serene.